In this video, I want to use and show you some dates that are used by Seventh-day Adventist, and they want you to believe that these dates are accurate without ever offering any historical proof that they are accurate. But before getting into that, let me show you what I'm talking about. Let's suppose that I wanted to debate you over the dating of the book of Revelation. There are two dates that people debate these days: the early date somewhere in the 60s AD, and a latter date somewhere in the 90s AD. Now, if I took an early date and I wanted to get you to believe that early date, then I need to present all the evidence that I have to convince you that I'm right about the early dating of the book of Revelation. If you want to convince me that you're right about the latter dating of the book of Revelation, you need to present to me the evidence that you have that it was written in the 90s. That way we can look at the different ways in which we go about dating the book of Revelations, see the sources we use, how we arrive at that date, and we can see where each other is coming from. And that way we can see the evidence for why we select a certain date. And then we can argue our evidence to see if our evidence is right. So we have a starting place of where we begin to show our dating of the book of Revelations, and gives us some way to debate it to see whether we're right or wrong. Now, what the Seventh-day Adventists have done is giving some dates that apparently they just want people to accept without giving no historical evidence that they're accurate at all. Remember when William Miller used the dating of Daniel 8:14 to be 2,300 prophetic years. And by the way, this was endorsed by Ellen White and members of the Seventh-day Adventist organization today. And if you doubt they still use the chart of William Miller's, I'll show you a picture here on the screen of a Seventh-day Adventist member, and notice what I have circled there on the wall behind him, William Miller's prophetic chart. So they still use the same material today. Now then, William Miller couldn't find a starting date for the 2,300 years. And so he has to somehow find it. And I've heard Adventists say, it's got to be the decree in Daniel 9:25, or else things just don't fit. So what they have done now is taken two chapters that have no relation and tried to make them fit. Kind of like trying to put a square peg in a round hole. They just somehow want to make it fit. So anyway, they jump over to chapter 9 of Daniel, and they say, okay, we're going to find us a starting point for this 2,300 prophetic years. So they go to Daniel chapter 9, verse 25, where it says, from the going forth of the decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem. So they say, okay, when was this decree issued? So now what they do, they go to Ezra chapter 7, and they see a decree issued there by Artaxerxes. And history shows that this decree was issued in 458 or 457. There's not a date certain on it. Some say 458, some say 457. So they say, okay, now we've got a starting point. Let's talk about that for a minute. First of all, I have not seen an Adventist yet offer any historical proof that 457 is the right dating for Daniel 9:25. They just expect people to accept it without ever questioning it. Now, in the Seventh-day Adventist circle, that might be acceptable because they've got to go by what Ellen White says to begin with. And if she says 457, then they have no choice. It's got to be 457. But I'm sorry, Seventh-day Adventists, in the real world, we're actually looking for proof. If you're trying to lure people into your cult organization, many people are going to ask for proof. You're not going to find a bunch of mind-numb robots out there who won't ask questions. So, but they offer, as far as I've never seen it, any historical proof that the dating of the decree is 457. In fact, if you will look at it closely, you'll see that Daniel 9:25 says, from the going forth of the decree to restore and rebuild Jerusalem. But yet when you look at the decree by Ezra in chapter 7, it doesn't say anything about rebuilding Jerusalem. All it is refurnishing the temple. In Nehemiah chapter 2, they actually give a decree to go and rebuild Jerusalem. And this was 445 BC. Now I'm not saying 445 BC is right either. What I'm showing is that they even taken a verse of scripture in Ezra that talks about refurnishing the temple. It doesn't say anything about rebuilding the city. The whole point is this, and I think people see it clearly. Where is your historical proof that 457 is the decree mentioned in Daniel 9:25? And as far as I know, they've never offered any proof whatsoever. None. But they expect people to just say, okay, we said it, that's it. And with offer no historical proof. So now then, the next date they come to is the death of Jesus. Now remember, they're trying to find a conclusion for this 490 years of prophecy in Daniel chapter 9. They're trying to find a conclusion for that 490 years of prophecy. So they come down to the next date of 31 AD as the death of Jesus. Again, no historical proof whatsoever. Not one fact showing that Jesus died in 31 AD. If they offered something, people would have a debating point to say, no, he didn't die in 31 AD because of this. And they may show where he died in 28, 29, 30, even up to 33 AD, according to some scholars. But yet they offered no debating points because they offer absolutely no historical proof that Jesus actually died in 31 AD. None. There's nothing. None whatsoever. They just simply accept it because Ellen White said 31 AD. And she didn't offer any proof either. So now we come to the next date, which is 34 AD for the death of Stephen. Once again, they offered no historical proof whatsoever that Stephen died in 34 AD, other than the fact that their infallible interpreter of Scripture, Ellen White, said so. I've looked and I've seen scholars who've said he could have died in 35 AD, 36 AD, 37 AD, but the fact is they don't know because there is nothing out there as far as I've been able to find that even shows any date that Stephen died, much less 34 AD. So once again, because Ellen White said so, they're expecting the rest of the world to simply accept the word of a false prophet that Stephen died in 34 AD. So there you have three dates, 457 BC, 31 AD, and 34 AD. And as far as I've never seen any historical evidence where Seventh-day Adventists have tried to present an argument to show that they're true. They're true to the Seventh-day Adventists because Ellen White said that they're true. But they're not true to the real world Seventh-day Adventists because in the real world, we're not trying to put a square peg into a round hole. Until next time, this has been Golly saying, God bless.